Hey guys, GearKid60 here, and right now I'm going to be reviewing the Swiza Authentic Swiss Knife. I noticed that for some reason they don't call it a Swiss Army knife. Okay, but it is made in Switzerland, and this is the model D01. This is seems to be the competition for Victorinox, what seems to be the biggest or probably the only authentic Swiss Army knife maker right now. I'll give a little history lesson sometime in this video, but let's open this sucker up. Here you go. Here is the Swiza D01. What sets Swiza apart from the other manufacturers such as Victorinox and Wenger is that these guys are relatively new to the game. They are becoming a Swiss lifestyle brand. Same thing with the other Swiss Army such as Victorinox and Wenger. On with the review of the Swiza D01. This is a relatively interesting design in that, number one, taking a look at the scales, they call this the soft touch type of scale. I believe Wenger made something like this, but I don't own one. But it has a soft touch, feels really rubbery. I don't have any comment to see how it holds up over time, but they call it durable and scratch resistant. If it doesn't hold up to that, I'll let you guys know in future video. It also says on the bottom of their nomenclature, they say it's dishwasher safe up to 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Interesting, but I would never stick any of my knives, even my other Swiss Army knives, inside the dishwasher. It has a single locking blade, which is a very interesting design in that, number one, the opening mechanism has an enlarged nail nick, which I really appreciate because it makes opening the knife relatively easy compared to the other knives. By the way, I call this one a Wenger, even though it has the Victorinox design, because this was originally a Wenger design. As you can see, the nail nick is a lot smaller and harder to open in this knife compared to the Swiza design. Same thing with this Victorinox. Now, as for the lock, this has a push button liner lock design. I hope you guys can see it. When I push the lock, you can see the liner move back and forth. Once you push it in, you can now close the knife. The Wenger knife has, as you can see, first it has an indent where you can open it halfway before you open it all the way. And the reason is because it has a clunky type of, in my opinion, not an ergonomic design lock, in which you have to push this one in first. And as a safety, that second indent is there to stop the blade. It doesn't necessarily stop, but it's just there to notify you, hey, the knife is coming in this way, before you close the knife. It's kind of clunky, but again, at least it's locking compared to the standard Victorinox design, where it is it's just a slip joint. I don't know if you know this, but slip joints are non-locking. They are held in by friction, and once you go past that friction, the knife closes as so. Out of the handle designs, I prefer the Wenger design better. It has rubber inlays. It just feels better in my hand compared to this full soft touch design. I'm not sure how durable this is when it's used over time. I'll let you guys know if I have any issues with it. I do not like this particular type of scale design that the standard Swiss Army knife provides, because when it's wet, it's usually slippery. So as far as knife design goes, I absolutely love it. It is my favorite design in this size Swiss Army knife, and it's very utilitarian. Next is the awl. I really don't use this tool that much. I know some guys do. I've only used it to make holes in my belt, and that's about it. Here is the design between this and the Wenger. And here is this versus the Victorinox. I personally prefer like this method. I guess I prefer this method because you can stick it out and you can like torque it in, as compared to this one you just dig in yourself. But doesn't really matter. I don't use it that much. The next tool is the corkscrew. It's relatively useful for, you know, opening pack for untangling knots, and obviously uses corkscrew to open up wine bottles. Just as a side note, now that I thought about it, what you can typically find on Victorinox knives is this precision screwdriver that as you can see, just screws in to the corkscrew. I believe this is a patent of Swiss Army knives, but let's go see if it fits into this knife. No, it does not screw in all the way. Does it close? Doesn't close. It does not close all the way. So I guess this is more or less a no-go. Must be a different type of swirl pattern. I don't know if that's a proper engineering wording of it. So no, you can't be able to put your standard Victorinox precision screwdriver attachment inside this corkscrew. The final tool is this tweezer. So I'm going to hold on to this knife for about a week, use it for my everyday pocket carry, and I'll let you guys know how it runs. Hey guys, I am now back on my 7-day testing of the Swiza D01. Now, testing this knife compared to these 3 knives, I absolutely love this knife. Now you have to keep in mind, trying to keep things fair here, these two guys have been around for way longer. Should I say the Wenger and the Swiss Army? Victorinox have been out way longer than Swiza, and these two have a way bigger tool library for their Swiss Army knives compared to Swiza. So I'm going to compare the portions where they do match up, such as the knife and corkscrew, tweezers, blah, blah, blah. But so far from testing this knife, I absolutely love it. Now, number one thing I like about this knife compared to these other 2 knives is the knife itself, which is interesting in that when people compare these Swiss Army knives, they always compare the tools and blah, blah, blah. But the one thing that has impressed me most about this particular knife is the knife itself, not the amount of tools, but obviously it's a minimalist design. Now, having said that, this knife is the easiest to open and close safely. The handle, which is a soft touch handle, has held up so far. It does pick up lint, little FYI, but it has stood up relatively well in my pocket. Not that many Mars or whatever that I thought would happen. But back to the knife design. It's absolutely awesome. Comes from the factory razor sharp, so does these, but I like the opening and the closing. Obviously the standard Swiss Army knife does not lock, it's just a slip joint. This one I do not like. I'm okay with the opening, I do not like the closing. They purposely put the indent there to make it stop so you don't cut yourself, but I still don't like the fact that it closes with your hand in the way. So that's it with a knife. The awl, I didn't use it I rarely use an awl in my everyday carry, so take it or leave it, it's an awl. The corkscrew I did use, which is pretty useful for undoing knots, and you know, also for a wine bottle opening, which it does relatively well, held up well. The one thing that I'm kind of miffed is that you can't use the standard Swiss Army precision screwdriver attachment. It doesn't screw down all the way, and if you stick it out, it obviously does not come in flush. Speaking of which, I know this used to be a Wenger design. I wonder if I don't know if the original Wenger design allowed for the use of this precision screwdriver, but let's go see if this thing fits in here. Yes, it does. Okay, so that's an interesting side note. It does work for these two knives. Then the other tool is the tweezers. So far I've used it. There's nothing to write home about. They're not terrible, but they don't have anything that sticks out compared to the other two knives here, which is the Victorinox and the Wenger design. So far, in conclusion, would I recommend this knife to people? And I say, yes, I do. One, from a collector standpoint, it's totally awesome that now we have another high quality Swiss Swiss Army knife maker in the game. Not just Victorinox, who bought out Wenger and took out all their designs. We now have a pretty good design from Swiza. Now, the only thing I hope they work on is their tool catalog, in that they seem to have the least variety of tools, and they're just going to get murdered from from Swiss Army in that regard. But so far, this is a pretty awesome first steps of the company. Anyways, if you guys want to purchase this knife, please use the Amazon links below. It helps me out. It doesn't cost you guys anything, but it helps support my channel. If you guys have any questions, just leave me a comment down below and I will try my best to answer it. And if you guys have any questions, just bring it down below.